Hello and welcome to Quartzlight, your car brochure channel. Today we're going to be looking at the Renault 12. Hello and welcome back to Quartzlight. And incidentally, if you are into car brochures, please do subscribe, as this channel is all about that. So back to the Renault 12, introduced at the Paris Motor Show in October 1969, and it was the French production ended in 1980. Incidentally, today's brochure is from 72, so it is quite an early one. It could be had as a saloon or a very practical estate car. In fact, the European press did praise it at the time for being a very spacious design. They liked the styling and they particularly liked the low fuel consumption. In North America, it was a different story. The press really didn't like it the same at all. They said the engine had a very obtrusive noise to it. They said the power steering or lack of power steering was a serious design flaw, and they hated the ventilation system. It just shows how different vehicles sometimes work over the pond and sometimes they don't. After all, why do North Americans have to even turn a corner? So why do they need power steering? I joke, of course, but if you think about the big American cars, they all had power steering at the time. In Europe, well, me personally in the UK, late 80s, 89, there was still plenty of cars with no power steering and big heavy cars indeed. But did we complain? No, we was quite happy with them. So it just shows how the different market for different vehicles is, and how different people's views to cars can change depending on where you live. But anyway, I'm kind of waffling away. Let's have a look at this car brochure and see what we can see inside. And here is today's brochure. Like I said, I do quite like the styling of the Renault 12. It's a little bit unusual when you look at the rear with this drop-away boot, but overall I think it's a very Renault, very 70s Renault design, and I do particularly like it. Of course, you may recognise this car under another badge. Indeed, it did sell, was sold by the Romanian automaker Dacia, or as I used to call it, Dacia in the 80s, but now I have to call it Dacia, so Dacia it is. So this was really, the Dacia was a car based on the Renault 12, and it was called the Dacia 1310, again as a saloon estate, and that was actually sold until 2004, so the design really lasted a long time. Indeed, there was also a Renault 12 based pickup, the Dacia pickup, and that actually ran till December 2006. So it's amazing how the design carried on in other countries. Looking at this today's brochure, we'll open the brochure up and we'll see what we can see inside. In fact, I've just realised a mistake. I had it the wrong way around. Indeed, the front and the back is exactly the same. But anyway, let's open this brochure up and see what we can see inside. It does show the rear view of that Renault 12, and like I say, I think that's the most unusual design, that sort of sweeping away boot lid, but typical French, a very comfortable vehicle to drive in. So then the text is saying, take a good look at the Renault 12. The Renault 12 is a good looking car, but its shape isn't just handsome, it's functional. The aerodynamic shape of this 4-door 5-seater allows a free flow of air over the body, etc, etc. And it starts talking about, the wings are bolted on, not welded, etc, etc. And then it's saying looks on everything, and talking about the engine, which in this case is a 1300 engine, 60 brake horsepower for the standard models, or 68 brake horsepower for the top model, the 12 TS. So the interior is a very plain interior, isn't it? A very basic vehicle indeed. It does show these heated rear windows, but controls are kind of like limited. It's got a little bit of style to it, particularly steering wheel is very Renault-esque type steering wheel, but overall a very simple vehicle. And as we turn the page still further, we get more shots of that interior. I do particularly like these nice red seats, I must admit, and the rear seats do look particularly nice with this centre armrest. I do particularly like that. As we turn the page still further, it does show the practicality of the boot. Yeah, there's no estate version, but it is quite a large boot, and the thinking really is if you wanted more space, of course you had the estate version as well. The side view on this, it does look really nice from the side, in my opinion at least. Yeah, the styling is a little bit unusual with the sloping away up each side, but overall I do think it's quite an attractive design. This is particularly an unusual place to put the badge, I think, though. I don't know if you can see that, but there is a very strange badge. It's not quite, there you go, Renault 12 TL. I think that's quite an unusual badge placing. As we turn the page still further, and we'll just kind of like zoom away from this because I think this is a particularly nice looking vehicle. Yeah, I do particularly like this. This is the Renault 12 TS in a beautiful shade of green. That's a lovely colour, and sort of a matching green interior with these lovely sport seats. Yeah, this was kind of like your sporty version with your nice wheels, your lovely interior, and a bit of a nice line going down the back. I do think this, I don't know if it's the colour, but I do particularly like this. I think it's an extremely attractive version. And I've just zoomed in on the text next to this green Renault 12 TS. It says here the Renault 12 TS is for the enthusiast who wants a little bit extra, both in performance and refinement. TS, of course, means Tourisme Special. It goes on to say there's extra performance on this, increasing the output of the engine by 13.3%, giving it 68 brake horsepower. It also mentions those rather lovely wheels, calling them Gordini styled sports wheels, and then saying the front seats with a combined headrest. The Renault 12 TS, a vehicle of quality, good looking, and one that is able to sustain high speeds over long distances with saloon car comfort and luxury. A car designed with the enthusiasts in mind. I guess that's something we kind of like forget about when we think about cars like the Dacia 1310. We think of it more as a very basic, cheap mode of transport. The interior shot of the TS, and if you notice on here, we do now get a rather lovely rev counter to give it that sporty feel, I guess, or sporty look. Rev counters weren't there particularly as standard at this time. You also had to get something a little bit special to get a rev counter at these times. It also gives us a little bit of a zoom in on those lovely sporty but don't they look so comfortable, particularly a very French thing to have comfortable seats in them, and these do certainly look like they are a very nice place to be. And then we get to the most practical one, the Renault 12 Estate. As you can see, a very practical vehicle. I don't particularly like the styling of the Estate quite as much. It's a little bit unusual at the rear end, but very practical, a very low lip on the Estate model, making it a very practical car. Talks about that practicality. The rear bench seat folds forward to make additional load space, and flat floor of luggage area with rear seat folded forward, so showing that increased practicality. And here are the images of a leaf, like it said, showing that increased space with the ability to fold these seats down. They're not split fold like modern vehicles, but it certainly makes a very usable area and a very practical vehicle. Overleaf, we do have the specifications, so we'll have a quick zoom in there. So we'll just have a quick look on there. Of course, you can always pause the video if you want to look at it in more detail, but it's saying there, you know, the engine, it's front mounted, 4-cylinder is in line, 60 brake horsepower for all the models, the L, TL or the Estates, unless you get that TS, and like it says, you do get 68 brake horsepower on that particular model. The transmission is front wheel drive, 4-speed on all synchromesh, and your brakes hydraulic with discs in front, drums at rear. And then later on it starts talking about, you know, your actual equipment that you can actually get in your Renault 12. So interior trim, the door panels and seatings are covered in vinyl, but you do get a cloth option on the TS. And then it goes into instruments and controls and your usual little bit of a equipment list, what you can get on each different version. I'm not going to talk about all that, but they're very simple things, like, you know, you had to get the top of range TS to get things like a clock, which sounds ridiculous today, but you know, it was a little bit of a special item, I guess, to get your nice little clock in there. And you've got things like your optional heated rear windows on the Estate or the base model, where it was standard on the other two, etc., etc. On the far side of the brochure, it's talking about safety equipment and your dimensions, your capacities, and then it mentions there that this is a UK brochure and it was printed on the 31st of December 1972. So there we go, the Renault 12. My particular favourite is that beautiful green Renault 12 TS. I do think that looks fabulous. But let me know your experiences with the 12, good or bad. I love hearing real world experiences of these cars in the comments. But that's really the conclusion of the video today, so please do like and subscribe. There are many brochure videos to come, but for now we'll say take care and goodbye.